Facts don't care about your feelings. Facts don't care about your feelings. These are facts.
I don't have a lot to say about this, but I do just want to draw attention to it, maybe get into some of the details, because I haven't seen it reported on in any national news in the US at all, really. So there have been major protests going on in Sri Lanka. They're generally protesting against the president, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, because, his family, the Rajapaksa family, have kind of had a stranglehold on Sri Lankan politics for a long time. Several of them have been president. I don't know if they're exactly like a dictatorial, like, royalty. They still have elections, but it does seem like they have a lot of control over Sri Lankan politics, and Sri Lanka's in the middle of like an extreme economic crisis with severe inflation. People are regularly out of power. There's shortages of everything, basically, and people are just like, yeah, he has to resign, and also his family needs to resign and have have another election. Let's do this. Let's do a legit election. But the government has been clamping down pretty hard on it. They declared state of emergency. There's military arrests. You can't go on social media or anything. Curfews, and which created more backlash, of course. And like, it created issues such as when they block social media, people just use VPNs around it, and then they're like, well, this is pointless, and they stop blocking the internet like the next day or something like that. But these protests, like I said, are still ongoing, and they've gotten some results so far. There were a lot of people who resigned from the president's cabinet. I think at the end of the day, these protests will be successful. I'm going to be real. Like, if the electricity was out for half a day every day in the US, I think there would be mass protests like this too. Like, that's one of those things where it's just like, what else are you going to do? At that point, it's kind of like similar to like, if you are starving, you don't have food. What are you gonna do? That's when you like protest. That's when you feel it in your gut. Like, I need to really protest every day against this, because what else do I have to lose? If your power's out every day, part of it would just be like, oh, I'm freaking bored and my government's fricked up. What am I gonna do? That's part of it as well. But so maybe I'll do more on this soon, especially if anything else develops.
We will dismantle oppression board by board. We'll saw the foundation of big business in half, even if it takes an eternity.
And I also wanted to talk a little bit about the ousting of the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan. So I want to start out by saying that Imran Khan and a lot of people in Pakistan kind of believe this ousting of him was supported by the US. And of course, I definitely believe that. Not because I think Imran Khan is a super interesting or great guy. I don't really know, but I just would never put anything like that past the US. But basically this started because Imran Khan attempted to disband Parliament, and the Supreme Court basically ruled that he couldn't do that and restored the Parliament. And so he was left with the option to resign or quit, or resign or be fired. And by fired, I mean voted out by the parliament. In general, Imran Khan seemed to have been losing support from Pakistan's military, which has a lot of control and influence throughout Pakistan. So what ended up happening is, he was fired. He was voted out.
You're fired.
And a lot of people were really upset about this. He does have a lot of public support. I've also seen people criticize him for basically being like an Obama type figure, like talk a really big talk about the poor, but just be, surrounded by the capitalist class. But I mean, he does have support. So did Obama. And Imran Khan says that he's really trying to fight against this. And, like he said, he has accused the U.S. of working behind the scenes. So we'll see where that goes. I guess I don't have much to say about it. It's kind of a shame, but kind of not. Whatever.
Whatever you say, boomer. Okay, boomer.
And for this next story, like I said, I'm playing catch up a little bit because some of these stories really happened while we were on hiatus. And I think by next week I'll be more on track of talking about more current news, but I'm still catching up on important stuff that fell through the cracks. And so for this next segment, I am going to talk about the CIA surveillance that was revealed to some degree, and also a story that came out about torture in the CIA. So I'll start with the torture story and then move on to the surveillance story. So this story about torture came out in The Guardian. It was from March 14th, so over a month ago. The headline: CIA black site detainee served as training prop to teach interrogators torture techniques. Basically, this guy they had, Ammar al-Baluchi, in a lot of ways, he kind of seems like a patsy because he was detained for the charges against him are, quote, facilitating the 9/11 attackers, acting as a courier for Osama bin Laden, and plotting to crash a plane packed with explosives into the U.S. consulate in Karachi. And he was cousins with or related to in some way Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who was considered like the architect of 9/11, and so he did have these ties to 9/11, but there were some things that I'm a little like he definitely could have been some type of patsy, because the extent of his involvement was primarily transferring money to different people, and this includes like from Osama bin Laden to the Saudi hijackers. And al-Baluchi claims that he often helped people in Dubai do these things to supplement his income, and he had no way of knowing whether any of them were criminals. It is like very possible that he was basically just like, we have a lot of money, and can you wire us money when we get to America? We want to go to America. And he's like, yeah, let me show you how to act American and stuff like that. And, how would he know? But then again, he does have ties to people who absolutely did a lot of stuff for September 11th. So who knows? But he was just like transferring money here or there to different like Islamic communities and Islamic people throughout the US, and it would be like, a few thousand here or there. And I would believe it's possible he wouldn't have a way of knowing what he was doing. But and then I guess just another part that really highlights all of this, which really like makes it more, I'm just like not sure what to think, is that al-Baluchi we don't know how much of this information came while he was being tortured or not, because his trial is still like being pushed and pushed and pushed, primarily because a lot of this testimony was gotten from torture, and they're like debating the legality of that. Al-Baluchi is most famous for is, if you've ever seen Zero Dark 30, the character that is tortured so much at the beginning of the movie is al-Baluchi. It's very much based on him. With intelligence information, like the US intelligence community was feeding these people a ton of info to make this movie. For a long time, I kind of defended this movie because I was like, oh, well, it portrays the CIA in a really negative light. I'm talking about Zero Dark 30. It portrays them in a really negative light, but now I don't really think it was intended to do that. And I guess you can't, like, I do try to read things independent of intention, but like just the fact that it had so much like CIA collaboration to make the movie Zero Dark 30, I just don't think I could trust it, man. Like, I will probably never watch that movie again.
So many great movies.
But anyway, back to this article. So, about the torture of Ammar al-Baluchi. Basically, it has come out, and this is already known in some ways, and what is not known is not surprising either, is he was used as a human prop for the CIA black sites training on how to torture people. One of the torture techniques they used on him, one of many that is described in this Guardian article, is a thing called walling, where, I mean, from the way that they describe it, it's a little hard to visualize, but they basically put the torture subject's heels against a plywood wall, which was flexible, and they'd put a towel around the detainee's neck, and then the torturer would grab the towel so it's around the person's neck as they're against the wall, and then shove the person being tortured into the wall without letting go of the towel. And the idea was to keep hitting the torture subject against the wall. And of course they were naked for all this. They just do it for 2 hours at a time, they said, just bouncing someone against the wall repeatedly when they have when they have no control of their body. And this article also talks about how it says, quote, a neuropsychologist carried out an MRI of Baluchi's head in late 2018 and found, quote, abnormalities indicating moderate to severe brain damage. So it's kind of impossible to deny that this would be related, especially because the CIA was literally using him as a human prop to train people how to torture. They were doing it one after the other, which implied some sort of certification by torturing him.
I'll never apologize for the United States of America. Ever. I don't care what the facts are.
And then there's also the story, this is also from The Guardian. This is from more than 2 months old now. This story came out on February 11th. Headline, declassified documents reveal CIA has been sweeping up information on Americans. And there's really not much to say about this. I'll quote a couple paragraphs from the article. The CIA has been secretly collecting Americans' private information in bulk according to new declassified documents. The surveillance program was exposed on Thursday by 2 Democrats on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Ron Wyden of Oregon and Martin Heinrich of New Mexico alleged that the CIA has long concealed it from the public and Congress. The two senators, frequent critics of the CIA, said they are not allowed to reveal specifics about what type of data has been subject to bulk collection and called for more details about the program to be declassified. So, I mean, we don't know much. We basically just know this exists, but we basically know that they, like, collect people's data if they interact with a foreign intelligence interest. And what I can really just imagine that means is, like, they could, like, the CIA can make some freaking fake social media account and follow you, and, like, if you follow back and ever tweet at them, then they get suspicious. Like, who knows what that means? They could be, and I'm guessing they are not discriminate about what information they collect. I think this program has to be freaking massive. Even though we don't know much about it, we do know it exists, and, like, from the way it is described, it sounds freaking massive, and it's scary. And the reality is, like, the NSA has all of this information and more, and presumably you would think the CIA has access to that. So the whole thing is, I mean, if the CIA ever wants to make you look bad, like, they can find it. They have it somewhere. So it's just scary to think about that. And, you know, I always remind people on this show about the reauthorization of the Smith-Mundt Act, which basically made it legal for the CIA to distribute propaganda in the United States. Of course, that never stopped them before, but they are just increasingly involved with the production of media and the distribution of pro-CIA messaging domestically. So it's all just really scary.